All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. It's another edition of the MSP Initiative Live. We bring my co-host and radio personality extraordinaire, one Mr. Ken Patterson. How you doing today, buddy?
What's up? I'm doing great. I got my jerseys behind me, courtesy of George Bardisi. I'm in a good place, I'm getting a lot of crap.
Can I guess I should take credit a little bit because it was like a four cursor, right? A four, like the jerseys like lined up the whole, Tampa Bay, Brady is better than Belichick, that whole story, right?
And it's fun. The timing was great, or at first we thought it wasn't great, right? Because it took 9 months to get them.
Well, I don't know about you, but most if you bought something in March or April and it didn't show up until October or November, I'd say you're probably going out of business.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the NFL is not going out of business.
Well, that's the thing, right? I don't know why, they are who they said they were, right? They get the benefit of the doubt and everybody gives them, but who's gonna put an order in on Amazon, for example, and wait 9 months for it to show to the point where you actually were like, dude, you never ordered these, you just blowing smoke. And I'm like, no, I ordered them. I had to send you receipts. You thought I was just joshing you. So just saying, but yes. I'm glad you got them. I'm glad they were timely because you're now taking them out and using them every weekend now.
Yes, I am.
Right on. So lots of stuff going on in IT services land. It seems like as every week is a new week. But it's just so weird with that black and red jersey with the green and gold, and yeah, it's just so awful. Anyway, couple of major things that have passed by the news wire, I'll call it. Looks like your buddies over at Pax8 have announced some new partnerships. What's happening, pal? What's happening? Who's now in the list?
Oh, you're going to ask me that question right now? I don't even know all of them. The big one is Rocket Cyber. That's the real new big one. Other than we talked about WireHive the acquisition of WireHive and the dive into the UK. Right now, Rocket Cyber is the big one. That's something that the MSPs have been asking for, and we got an enterprise version of SOC earlier or last year, and now we have one that fits right into the mid and SMB space for SOC, which is Rocket Cyber, and partners are already using them and diving into it beforehand, and we're hearing very good things. So it was a quicker process this time around because I think there was already a fit and the MSPs were using it. We got a lot of good feedback ahead of time, so it helped.
That's good. Obviously we know the people at Rocket Cyber pretty well. Beth was able to join us on the Channel Strong tour back in October, so that was fun.
Right.
And then was there another announcement, or was that the big one, the most recent one?
Off the top of my head, no, there's a few. There were a few new announcements that just happened. So because I've been dealing with boot camps and running a little bit, I haven't got all of them on the tip of my tongue, but give me 1 second, because I will. There was AirSlate was added recently. That's a good one. That's a alternative to Adobe. We all know how difficult it is to get a partnership with Adobe, and everybody needed it because they wanted to do PDFs. So AirSlate is a company that does PDFs and signature files. So that's one of the new ones that we just added on. And I just want to double check. I knew that one off the top of my head, but yes, they do e-signature workflows, robotic and document process automation, PDF filler, sign now, and and PDF editing. So that's some new cool stuff. There's another productivity vendor that I don't know a whole lot about yet because it clearly the product team does all that stuff. But we have Enlift, which is a business intelligence application. And that helps organizations make better business decisions through the analysis of that data. So cool stuff. I don't have, like I said, that's my 10,000 foot view because I just don't have that the deep dive into that one. But yeah, we're on pace to do 3 new vendors a month, I believe. So that's some pretty crazy acceleration, especially considering the communications and network side being pushed over there as well onto the same product team. So pretty aggressive, but they're still doing the same due diligence as I won't speak to that, but you know that there's some due diligence there.
Yes, it's not exactly easy to go through the process. A lot of vetting.
Right. Yeah, I want to make sure that whatever solution comes across, it's the right solution for the MSPs.
100%. Well, that's
But
exciting.
Enough about Pax8.
No, I mean, listen, we always love to hear about new partnerships, right? Whenever we hear people, building new things, connecting new opportunities. I mean, it's just, just another option, right? To get into the mix. I guess I lost my light here. All good. So, good news is that it looks like a lot of the cities that were under a super restrictive lockdown, seems like we're hearing some signs of light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like all of a sudden, not getting into the political side of things, I'm just saying there's people are going to start to reopen, right? Which means that a lot of retail locations, a lot of restaurants, a lot of people that ultimately have been locked up from a business standpoint for months are now going to turn back on. I'm curious to see how that, if they have shut off stuff with their MSP, do they go back? Or are they going to try and, at some point, they're going to need their technology to work, right? Even if, it's not going to always be, we've all been there, right? You turn it back on, it doesn't always work right away. So have you been talking to people recently, Ken, about that? And do you think that that's signs of potentially an uplift for people that have lost some revenue over the last 12 months?
Well, I mean, speaking outside the MSP world, absolutely, because they're getting, there's no room for them to get revenue, right? I mean, from the MSP standpoint, MSPs pivoted, right? They made, if they weren't in cloud enough, they pushed more into cloud. And if they were already in cloud, we talked about this before, right? We saw that 20% or so roughly growth over the average of the folks that we talked to. Outside of that, restaurants have not a whole lot to grasp onto. So here in Boston, we had, they put a curfew in place for the restaurant. So they had to close at the kitchen and everything had to be closed by 9:30. So they were closing the kitchens by 9. A lot of people, when you go out to dinner at 8:00, you're not really ready to close out by 9:00. You want to have a drink and hang out. And the restaurants feel that, of course, because they know that's where they get a big chunk of their business. That just got lifted Monday. So now there's no more restrictions. And the funny thing is, like the day that they heard that got lifted, the casinos all got lifted too. So casinos open 24/7 immediately. Like they couldn't wait to jump back out. We have one casino here, well, at least close to me. And then the restaurants went to 1 a.m. like right away. So they're trying to do that because they still have a limitation to how many people could be in the building. They're still at 25%. So they still have that, which they're hoping will get lifted soon enough because we've lost, you've heard of the North End. A lot of people have heard of the North End. The North End's lost 3 prominent restaurants, gone, not coming back ever again. I think maybe more. I just know of the 3 that either shut down or said they're pretty much done. That's crazy to talk about, right? These businesses have been in business for 30 plus years. So yeah, they need to get this open. And I do think this is a sign of, hopefully the pace is picked up, but I think this is a sign that things are going to start to head in that direction. I guess California could be the first place. When you see things open up even a little bit in Cali, that means it's going to open up a lot more in other places, it seems.
No, I mean, listen, New York and California obviously are 2 areas that there's no question have been largely more affected than others, but I'm just excited that it looks like, we heard Chicago starting to, wake up a little bit. I'm hearing, outside of Philadelphia, they're starting to wake up a little bit. New York, all of California now has gotten an indication that things are starting to kind of ease back. So I'm excited, man. Hopefully that means a prediction that things will start to unwind closer as we get to June.
Yeah.
We'll be on track, right?
Yeah. And we've talked about this many times. I mean, there's still that fear, right? We're still talking to people. Alec and I were just talking this morning, and we talked about one of the vendors saying we're still not doing any travel for 2021. And
Yeah.
I think it's just that they're following suit. They don't want to dip their toe in too early. And it's usually the bigger companies, like, we already saw Google and Microsoft do that before anything even happened this year. So some of the bigger companies are still sticking to their guns and saying, hey, we're just not going to do anything this year. But we're hoping that leaves room for some of the smaller guys to get out, get more exposure. It can be done safely. We've talked about this before. We're going to go on tour in March, and we're going to hopefully bring some more sunshine into the partners' lives, and have a little bit of fun and do it socially responsibly, if I can speak. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, as you and I are from the same mold, right? We can't wait to get back out and be in person. It's just it's a whole different animal to this virtual thing. I do believe the virtual thing has helped us in some ways. We wouldn't be doing this as often, and we wouldn't be getting together. And there's a lot of get-togethers happening, but you still can't beat an in-person, good old-fashioned face-to-face, even with a group of people just kind of bouncing ideas off each other, having side conversations, coming back to the conversation. There's no replacing that.
100%. Actually, one of our buddies who's been involved in the Channel Strong Tour had just sent us a new 15-minute test kit that you can do at home, right? Like, you could literally just take it, you put the solution in, and it literally just gives you the result based on what color it changes. Did you see that?
Oh, see, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, this isn't any different than what we've already been doing. I didn't realize it gives you the result immediately.
Yeah, you don't have to send it to the lab. Like, the color either goes one way or the other, and that tells you yes or no.
Interesting. And it's not reported to anybody.
No, it's $12.50 per kit, which is super inexpensive, and you get the result. But there's no paper, right? Like, there's no, hey, here's a copy of the lab saying that this is good. But you get it literally within 15 minutes. You do the nose thing, you put it in, you shake it up, and then 15 minutes later you get the color.
That's interesting. I wonder how accurate it is. That'd be kind of cool to see. My wife went twice in the last week because our daughter tested positive, and we were going through this whole process, and she just wanted to make sure she was in the right place in the incubation. And actually more than twice now. She got negative, then she went back to this other site, the mobile site, drive up site. Her results came back inconclusive, issues with the lab or whatever. You need to come back. She went back, same thing, inconclusive issues. So the lab had problems, and they're making her go back to the site. So now today she went to another site that we went to before that had none of these issues. So we'll see what happens. So it's interesting to see that the labs can mess stuff up in such a way that they don't even get the results back.
Yeah, Darren actually chats in and says, those aren't all accurate. Yeah, we hear you loud and clear, my friend.
We listen, none of them are accurate. So let's get back to that. There's not a test on the planet that has a full accuracy. There's just not. Even when they tell you when they test for strep, when they test for the flu, they test for all those tests. They all have a level of inaccuracy. So I don't know why everybody gets so that when you get this particular test that if you're positive, it's over, you're positive. And if you're negative, you're negative. There's always going to be inaccurate tests. You're not going to have, there's no test that's 100% accurate.
Sure. No, totally understand. Oh, there are my lights again. So we kind of skipped over it because there was a lot of news happening at the time. But from what I gather, there was a lot of noise a week and a half ago about MSPs hearing that Microsoft has been contacting their end customers on the Office 365 tip, if you would. I don't know if the positioning was they were trying to sell them new services or check in with them to say, is there anything we can do to help you? I'm not sure exactly what the script of that conversation was or conversations, but my understanding, Pax8's been trying to step in and help fix that whole situation. Can you give us some more feedback on what exactly that is?
Yes, actually, I'm typing, as you say this, I'm typing an email. Typing an email as we speak about this. So yeah, it's, and that's the one thing to understand. This is not Pax8. I got an email earlier that someone stated, is Pax8 selling our information? Why would we do that? We're the ones that want to sell it to you. We have, this is as much against us as it is against the MSPs. So, look at that. The whole thing is it really happening? How is it, what is it meant to be happening? Is it from a group? Microsoft's a big company. Is it from a small group that's trying to do this, take advantage of something? We're working on that. I know behind the scenes there was an immediate reaction. Pax8 happened to be on that Reddit thread and jumped right in and said, you know, we're going to take a look at this. But even today, like I said, I just got an email asking, you know, is Pax8 or in some other company selling our data? No, you get registered immediately with this. So it's possible that during the registration, that's going right to Microsoft, so they have your information. So let's not forget about that when you're talking about these types of things. I'm hoping it's just a small incident, a mistake, whatever it may be. I know that our teams, every team is involved in this. So our direct to Microsoft team, plus our upper, you know, the executive team, there's a lot of people involved with this. As everybody knows, we have a lot at stake with Microsoft. We just jumped in and pushed our way into the CSP. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing to happen, especially after all the progress Microsoft has made with wanting to understand the SMB MSP space.
I know.
So I'm just as concerned and curious as everybody else.
There was definitely multiple people who said that their customers have been contacted. So that's the first concern, right? If Microsoft's going to contact your end customer, what are the scenarios when that happens? And number two, is it in a, hey, we're just trying to give you an education, you know, angle and here's some resources, you know, situation? Or are they legitimately saying, hey, I'm your account manager at Microsoft. How do I get you to buy more? Like, I don't know. I feel like somebody needs to get some clarity on what the situation is. I mean, Pax8's in a much stronger position to get the answer from Microsoft than anybody here, out, you know, because of your relationship with them. But I think, and again, I know the guys at Pax8 obviously want to make sure everybody's protected, themselves included. Right. I would love to get a definitive answer from someone. You know, if it's somebody on the executive team or some sort of notice, you know, some sort of statement that comes out once they've gotten to the bottom of it. But it would be nice.
That's what will happen. There'll be a statement that comes out for sure, because this is affecting everybody. And the way I get it is this one that I just got. They were purchasing Azure configuration management software from Simeon Cloud. Mm-hmm. Purchasing the separate paid license from Pax8, I believe, or they bought M365 from Pax8, and then the Azure configuration management from Simeon Cloud. Mm-hmm. And 6 hours later, they got an offer of assistance from Microsoft. So is that just to help support, which doesn't make sense because support comes through where you get it as well. At least with Pax8, it does. Yeah, I know there'll be a statement, that's for sure. And I think they're not going to come up with a statement until it's 100% resolved. You know, they got the full answer from Microsoft. So stay tuned. And I know it's not just Pax8 digging into this. There's quite a few. I'm sure other distributors must be digging into this by now. Pax8 just happens to be the one that jumped on it first.
Well, that's good. We want somebody to be the champion for the cause. So I'm sure it'll take some time to get some updates from that. Maybe the next time we get together, maybe you'll have updates. I'm sure you'll give us kind of a heads up on what's happening out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that I saw pop up recently was basically back to, again, I mean, like, I know there's people out there that literally have entire businesses just following all the security events. It's hard not to talk about it because it just happens so frequently. But where do we go now, right? In terms of, do MSPs enforce the policies that are unpopular with their end customers to protect themselves, or do they waive themselves out of liability, right? I know we keep on talking about this, but yeah. Where does the arrow finally sit as it stands today? Or has the majority of people out there say, hey, Mr. Customer, you don't like it, we don't like it, but you need to do this. You need to have the password rotation, the multi-factor, you need to have the encryption keys, you need to have this, or else we can't help you. We don't want to take the liability of not helping you because then it's going to blow back on us.
Well, you just answered your own question, because that's the direction it has to be. If it were me, and again, I don't ever, you know me, I don't ever claim to be an expert. I don't ever claim to tell people this is the way to go. But I'm telling you, when it comes to security, there is no way to get away from liability if you're not if you're not forcing them to do the right things. And that all comes back to, making sure that the customers that you serve value what you do. That conversation's so much easier when those customers value what you do. So I know it's a tough time, and you don't want to lose customers, but at the same time, do you want to have a customer that could cost you thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe your whole entire business? Those are some decisions that have to be made. You could at least start the process now, but I just think that getting to that point where this is what we have to do, it's required by law, or sorry, we can't support you. Those conversations have to happen now. I mean, it's just
100%. But
yeah,
let me flip
there's just no way around it.
Let me flip the script just a little bit, because 2 days ago, we have SonicWall, very popular, been out for a long time. They're not some up and comer, now saying that they had, what seemed to be a larger threat, a vulnerability in their platform in the initial statement. And then as they got more and more into it, it wasn't as bad. But what do you like? Is there an SOP, standard operating procedure, PR plan? Like, how do you deliver that message to your end customer? You just forward a link? Like, what happens if they come to you, Ken? What if they say, hey, we have SonicWall. I just saw this in the news. Like, how do you, what's your recommendation to people to handle situations like that?
Yeah, that's a good question, George. From my perspective, I've never been a guy to beat around the bush or hide, bury my head in the sand. I've always wanted to be upfront with people. And I think that has to be the plan. I think I wouldn't just send a link. What I would do is be honest. This is what happened to any company. This is what SonicWall just proved. They're a security company. They're not a small security company. They've been doing this for a very long time, and they got hacked. And this is not a time to kick them or say, haha, SonicWall went down. This is going to happen to every company. It's going to come sooner or later in one way, shape, or form. Let's find ways to, limit this, maybe make it so this doesn't happen. And also let's learn the rest of the facts, because the facts are still murky. There is if you read that, you could say, well, it was started out large and ended up small. But when you read the actual facts, it's so muddy. I think I don't even know who it was Matt Lee or Scott Davis. Someone was like, yeah, now it's clear as mud what happened, right? I mean, it really is it's still not all hashed out yet. I mean, look at how long SolarWinds has been dragging out, and they're finding all these different things. They found a new variant in the last couple of days or so. And these are things that are going to happen. So you just have to be prepared to say, this is what we're saying from the beginning. First of all, your message should be, nobody can protect you 100%. Not us, not the government, not anybody. So what we're going to do is make sure we have the best plan in place. So if you're only relying on your SonicWall, then you've got some issues, because that's going to be a tougher conversation to have. If you have SonicWall plus other layers, now you have that conversation and talk about, hey, let's figure out what the real facts are before we go crazy and dump everything SonicWall and then move to the next company that possibly could have the same thing happen. That's a lot of pain. Let's see what they're going to do, what the remediation is, if it could happen again. But by the way, we were protected because we had layers in place.
Well, it's also probably, from a liability standpoint, it's also probably worth double checking what your business insurance provider's policy says about this situation, right? There's cost to you, right? You got to notify your customers. You got to maybe pick up the phone, send out letters. Maybe based on the breach, you need to notify them in order to make sure that you're not breaking notification rules that may apply to you at the state level, for example. So there's costs, right? And the question is, does your policy cover that? You should probably ask that question, especially when it's not something directly tied to your management of that customer's environment. It's an upstream vendor, right?
Yeah, I we've talked about that before too. I'm of the belief now that your policy should be reviewed every 6 months, just by what's happening. I think that a year is a long time. Think about what happened in the last year. I just feel like you should know that policy inside and out, and that way, when something happens, you're going to go, we should go back to our policy. There's some change we have to make. Whatever it is, it'll be well worth the time spent doing it. And plus, once you know it, if you're doing it every 6 months, it's going to be shorter addendums, shorter changes, because you already know it, right? You're already planning for it. So you don't have to go in like you're whipping up a whole new plan. But man, if you haven't looked at your plan in over a year or more, whew, you better start looking now, because there's going to be some surprises, and better you find them out ahead of time or during the time it happens.
100%. I notice here that like 15 really large companies left Silicon Valley to go to Texas.
Yep.
I mean, it's like almost every week a new company's like, yep, we're leaving.
We had it here. We've had, I know, what company was it? I think Sophos moved a big chunk of their team from here to Texas. So we had some sales folks here that were looking, saying, hey, I'm not going to go to Texas, that were looking. So that's how I stumbled across it. But it's cheaper to taxes, everything's just a all around easier environment to work. So while Sophos still has offices here, I think they moved their sales team to Texas. I think that was just announced last couple of months or so, something like that. So you're seeing it not just Silicon Valley, but you're seeing it in other, up here in the Northeast, where people are like, it's just getting too expensive. We need a better place to go to where we're not getting killed on taxes.
So it'll be interesting to see how that applies to the the multi-state MSPs, right? Because like, obviously if you're operating in their state, you have a physical location, right? This whole concept of tax nexus and all that jazz. I'm not an accountant, but everybody knows this. It'd be interesting to see where they actually move, from a revenue taxation standpoint, start, moving their headquarters around in order to benefit from some of these states that are more pro-business. Yeah.
Well, right. And unfortunately, we have another problem that this is all causing. Major cities start losing large companies, not just in the tech world, but just in general. This work from home thing can cause this too, right? If they start saying, hey, we don't need office space in downtown Boston, downtown Philly, LA, all these places, what happens to the livelihood of those cities? It's definitely a drastic change. It's not going to happen overnight. I just talked to someone a week or maybe a week ago or so, and he was like, New York's alive, love it, Manhattan's the best. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I was getting, right? That wasn't coming across to me from people I know that live in, maybe it's just not Manhattan, but he was saying how great that city is and it's still alive and all this stuff. And, maybe that's true, but when you're seeing on the news, these big companies pulling out, what's going to happen to these cities, the major cities? And I don't know if there's some balance there.
I don't know, but something, at the end of the year, things are going to have to shake out one way or another. One thing's for sure, and this affects every business, right? There is definitely me coming from VoIP land, right? We always talked about how all this taxes that used to be targeted to copper lines and T1s and all this stuff, literally they just turned their cannon over to VoIP, right? And they just started tacking on all that stuff. All these local municipalities that generate earned income tax off of payroll, all of these entities that have some sort of cut out of the actual payroll transaction, you better be realistic with the fact that there's going to be some reckoning coming, because all these people are now losing revenue because they're starting to question, where's your employee actually located? And now all of a sudden, if you had them registered as working from an office and they've been working from home, and that home's in a different city, different county, different state, now you need to start paying revenue here. I'm going to tell you that's coming. I mean, if it's not already happening, it's going to happen.
Yeah. And something interesting that you just made me think of, well, I just talked to my son this morning, so it added to it, but some of these, again, not to get political, but this just happened. So it's hit me home too, with two people. Last week, I was out picking up stuff for the family, and I bumped into one of my son's friends, and he was losing his mind. He got a phone call. He just got laid off. And I'm like, we're going back and forth, and I know he's in the high tech field. So I was like, what is it that, I don't remember what you do. He goes, oh, here's the kicker. We do ventilators. And I'm like, I would think ventilators are still hot. He said, not as of Monday. So he lost his job, and he said a bunch of people got laid off. And I'm thinking to myself, that's scary. They do ventilators, like that's something that's still necessary, right? And then my son, who was doing an internship for a large, like government, biomedical, NASA, like these companies all go through this company. And he was slated to get a full-time job there, just got his master's. So they were super excited to take him on. And he just let me know this morning that they lost their whole entire budget, even though there's a need. So I'm like, is this what's coming down the road for these jobs? Like, these are kind of positions that are still necessary, yet they're laying people off because they're losing budget. That's something else to be looking at and paying attention to. Because to me, especially where it hit so close to home, it was not only my son, but one of the kids his age that was in a business doing really well just a month ago. Now all of a sudden just gone, no work. So I thought that was an interesting point. I knew you'd have some thoughts
Well,
around.
listen,
It's crazy to think that could happen.
listen, the economy is a much bigger beast than any one of us realize or involved in. Here's the reality, right? A lot of people are business owners, right? Small business owners, right? We're trying to keep people going, right? But at the end of the day, we heard the comment a week ago or 2 weeks ago in one of our calls, hire slow, fire fast, right?
Right.
I mean, it's unfortunate that that's the stance, but if the business dies, then the employees attached to it are lost anyway, right?
Yeah, but fire fast is different than laying people off in a position that they needed. They just didn't get budget. So that's the part I'm talking about. Where is that all of a sudden this money disappears for stuff that's, I would think I think ventilators are a necessity. And I would think, my son's company, they literally said to him, we need to get you back. We need to get you back on here. We're shorthanded. And then a week later, they're like, we're not getting the funding for that department. So it's interesting.
Yeah, hopefully the technology field's not as volatile, I hope, but I guess depending on, technology is a big field, right? It's a big word, just like marketing's a big word, or, there's all these different businesses that kind of tie into that for sure.
Right.
Funny enough, we talked about this, kind of cleaning up your house kind of thing. We talked about getting rid of stuff that you don't need to hold on to so that you kind of limit your exposure in the event that there's a problem. Well, I just had an article pass by my newsfeed here saying, why you should delete emails instead of archiving them. And basically it comes back and says, even Gmail, who promised endless storage to all their free accounts, has come back saying, no, we can't do this anymore. So not only is it a space and cost standpoint, but it also comes back to a security standpoint. If you do have a breach, how far back did they go? And do you even remember that you had all that information?
Right. That's a good point. It's funny. That's not just that's now being limited. I don't know if you saw this, but Comcast is now charging for how much.
Oh, dude, I am total. And by the way, being from Philadelphia, where Comcast is headquartered, I am 100% against data caps. I think that's complete fraud.
It's a money grab. Because they're basically, this is what they did here. It's probably the same there. They sent me a note. Actually, they didn't even send me a note. I had to dig it up. January, February, and March, they're going to charge me if I go over 100%, but they're going to give me that money back because they're training me how to pay more. Then in March, then in April, if I go over 100, I'm getting that charge because I've been trained up to that point. But all they're doing is saying, well, you may not get 100. Well, they told me when it was 80, they told me when it was 90, and then right before the month ended, they said you're at 100%, meaning I'm going to probably hit that every month. So now I'm going to pay the fee if I want unlimited. It's crazy.
I don't understand why they didn't just take a page out of the cell phone game plan, right? Hey, it's unlimited with this much included, and then you slow down, or it's unlimited with even more included.
True.
I don't understand why they didn't do that.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that's when it was one of my wife's friends that pointed this out, said that she just got the notification or whatever. And I said, they're probably just going to slow it down at a certain, that's exactly what I thought they were going to do, which still sucks. But listen, if you have it, I mean, if I'm paying for a certain speed, it's because I need a certain amount of download. And then all of a sudden you're going to tell me, you're going to be capped now.
Well, I mean, listen, the ongoing live communication racks up the bill, right? Zoom's going to blow through your data, to be honest with you. And
exactly.
So and WebEx and everything else. I mean, here's the thing. When they sent you, I haven't gotten that notice yet.
I didn't get the notice. I had to look it up.
Okay, so when you looked it up, you have the option to go into your account somewhere online and say, hey, I don't want to pay more, cut me off, or you don't have a choice. You're going to get charged more.
Yeah, that is, you don't have a choice. So once it goes over 100, they're going to send you the bill unless you pay for the unlimited.
So how much more is the upgrade?
Oh, it's 30 bucks or something, but another 30 bucks. That's how they got you before. Remember what they used to do with their bills is they would keep increasing. They would say this, and then what I used to do is I used to call up, because I've been with Comcast here before they were Comcast. It was called Roadrunner. I don't know if you had the same in Philly. I've been,
Yeah.
God, maybe 30 years. I don't even know. It's crazy how long I've been. I had the basic dial up. I mean, I've had it all through that. So I used to call up and say, let me ask you this. Why is it that you have people who can be brand new customers and get a deal that I can't get after being with you for 20 years? And then,
Wow.
oh, yeah, sorry. And then they give me the deal. But why do I have to keep wrestling with them every single time to do that? And I did leave Comcast for a short while, for as much as I could. We don't have the option here to get internet through anybody else in my town, only Comcast. So I had to stick with them for internet, but then use DirecTV and tried to get away from the cable. It didn't work out that well. So I came back to them thinking, hey, okay, guys, look, I never left you. I had internet this whole time. What are we going to do? And they gave me a pretty good deal, but now they're just trying to find another way to inch it back up.
100%. Actually, Alan Miller pops in and says, combine that with every media company wanting to start their own streaming service. Oh, yeah. 100%, Alan. Here's the problem. There's towns and cities that have decided to start their own internet company because they think that they're getting gypped, right? If you go back and actually talk to your municipality, they sign what they call franchise agreements with all of these internet providers, and they lock them in for 12, 15 years at a time. But you look at the towns that have decided to create their own internet provider, they're offering gigabit internet speeds for like $30 a month.
Yeah. Well, you saw Elon Musk is throwing his hat in the ring for this too,
Oh yeah, what, with all the satellites he just launched?
Yep, he just launched all those satellites, and now he's going to try to use them for internet. That's going to be his next launch.
I feel like everybody, first it was the air balloon, then it was the airplane, now it's the satellite, right? How far up can we go here, guys? Everybody came up with a different, what was it? Google had Project Loon or something. It was like a hot air balloon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to know if Comcast, I want to have a balancing. So if they're going to charge me for going over on that plan, I want to see if they'll give me money back for the times that I've never even got half of what I.
Oh, of course not. You lose it.
I pay for gig speed. I don't get 500, let alone, I know you're not supposed to get exactly gig speed, but I see it when they come here and test it, it hits 900.
I wonder how much the trying to borrow your neighbor's internet's going to go up now.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy.
100%. Actually read an article just here saying that in the United States in 2020, data center leasing capacity tripled. Do you want to take a guess on who the largest leaser of data center capacity is currently in the United States?
No, I don't want to take a guess.
Oh, well, no surprise here, Microsoft.
Yeah. I was
do you want to guess who number 2 is behind Microsoft?
Amazon.
Nope.
Oh, really? Is it Google?
Nope.
See, this is where I thought you were going to get me on number 1. Who's number 2?
Facebook.
Oh, gee.
Facebook. Yeah. Believe it or not. Now, here's a one that you're probably not going to get. Do you want to guess who number 3 is?
No.
TikTok.
Really?
Yeah. Videos take up a lot of space, apparently.
Well, they definitely do. I know they just had another a little breach-ish, another incident, another hack on TikTok.
I mean, listen, I've been telling people, China owns TikTok. I don't feel comfortable putting that app on my phone, to be honest.
Yeah, they just had another little breach, or I know some data was compromised.
Well, I'm glad I'm not on there. How's that?
Yeah, I'm not on there either.
Apparently, there's a widespread internet outage hitting the Northeast right now. Did you know that? I'm glad I'm not getting affected.
Well, you're in Texas, but if that was true, I'd be gone right now. Oh, wait, bye.
Here you go. It says Brooklyn.
I should have blacked out the screen. Huh?
Here you go. Brooklyn fiber cut causes East Coast Verizon Fios outage.
Oh, good. No Verizon Fios here. We can't even get.
That's not good.
No. I bet that's going to cause some phone calls to the MSP world right now.
I would think so, especially if you're in that area for sure.
I hope you have failover.
Well, you would think Verizon would have failover for their entire internet network.
That'd be too
I
easy.
mean, just saying.
That would be too easy.
Okay, I digress.
You know, you could do it here, right? You can do the old failover and have it fail over to your backup ISP.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody has 2 internet connections at home, pal.
Oh, at home? No, you're right. That's true.
Exactly. And now a company comes out saying that they give a simple, easy, affordable way to encrypt your home internet connection. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm sure that'll work fantastic.
Yeah, so all your son's online gaming's got to be encrypted now.
Yeah, that'll work well. I already have enough screaming up there. I don't need any more screaming from trying to encrypt his gaming.
Hey man, just saying. So what are you hearing out there right now in terms of, you know, I know January, we're almost at the end of January, almost in February. January tends to be slow for a lot of people, right? I mean, just in terms of getting off the ground. So are you hearing business moving? Is it stuff overflowed from 2020 into 2021? How's the net new sales or just granular growth from your existing customers going?
So far, so good. I mean, I've had, I can tell you from a Pax8 perspective, which we're saying the same thing, that January is typically a slow time. January was a big month. I think I just heard that even with the final week that we're going to be 100% the goal, which is crazy to think about January with the goals were increased, and that's pretty crazy. And that means that's from the MSPs, right? That's not us just out because we don't sell anything else, right? Everything's through our MSP piece, and those numbers are direct from the MSPs. So that means our partners are busy in January.
That's good.
That's been a good thing. And, you know, we hear the same thing on the calls, right? The people are still getting their opportunity burst from COVID hitting and doing their education. And like I said, I hate to keep saying there's a lot of good coming out of this, but hey, I'd rather focus on the good than the bad. You know, we know that there's bad stuff happening. We get that, but why dwell on it? There's a lot of good things coming out of this. And if the partners, if the MSP channel and the community can dig in for the opportunity, pivot where they need to pivot, I think there's room for everybody to grow and prosper through this tough time.
100%. Did you, we had a comment by somebody, Ian Doberman from last week. Do you buy into what he said about, hey, because this PPP could be all over the place on 2.0, I'm not going in head first saying, hey, technology is deductible on 2.0, right? Do you feel that that's generally what's going to happen here? Or are you hearing from other people that they're using that as a sales wedge?
I feel like a lot of people haven't even got that yet, that second PPP. I mean, it only came out, a week or so ago for real, like when they said, hey, you can deduct anything that has to do with cloud, including protective gear for your technicians. Now people are starting to ask, is that going to do? But I would just say, do your homework, do the due diligence, have somebody rake through this, because sure, I guess some bigger partners could probably eat it up and use it. And as Ian said, right, it's all about, what are you going to get from it? And, is paying, like we talked about, what was it, what was the percentage that you had thought that was a back end?
25% from one quarter in 19 to one quarter in 20, yeah.
Right. So if there's that 25%, does what you get from it, make sense? Is it still worth it? That's what you have to gauge, right? You have to gauge, okay, what's the worst case? If we got hit with 25% or we got hit with these fees, did everything we get right now, but burst us past that payment, whatever that 25% is. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the big thing here, is to always, in any case, when you're doing something, especially when you're talking about something that comes from the government, do your homework, pay attention to all the little gotchas, and then make a decision based on, where your need is. I know it's easy to say money, I'm getting money. It's but I think we've all learned from the first couple of rounds. If you're not smart about it and you don't use it for what it's supposed to be used for, you could get hit with some pretty hefty penalties.
Yeah, no, I get that.
You know, and you did. I mean, not many people did as much homework as you did on these things for your business, and even went so far as to share how you went through how that, you know, some products you use went through that and gave you all the, you know, figured everything out for you. So, you know, I know you know that, but I think a lot of people sometimes just see like a credit card, right? Oh, I got a credit card. I don't ever have to pay this back, right? And you just charge and charge and charge until it blows up. Well, these are worse because you're going to get this money and then you don't realize that you're going to get hit with 25% or more, whatever the gotchas are. That could hurt your business in a major way.
100%. Do you hear of a lot of MSPs selling into the government space? Like, let's take local out of the equation, right? It's a little bit different. State and federal. Do you hear a lot of MSPs even playing in that space?
Not a lot because they don't understand it. I feel like they sometimes, it's like saying that you're an MSSP because you have a SOC. Same idea. I'm going into government because I got certified in whatever. That's not how it works. There's a lot of hurdles, and even if you get fully government certified, you have all those things you need. There's still a lot that has to happen. You know, my advice, to be honest, especially in the CGIS space, which is, you know, full blown government, is talk to a guy like Tim Choquette, someone that we both know. He's on the calls. He's willing to help MSPs learn what they have to do so they better understand it and then can say, I'm going to run for the hills or I'm going to hit this head on. The good news, if you're trying to look for new opportunities, there's not many certified people, especially in CGIS, that can help, police, military, those types. They do not have a whole lot of folks across the nation that do that. Tim Choquette is one of those guys, and he's not looking to take the whole entire country by storm. He'd rather help people and enable them to get these folks protected. So I think that's what makes easier for me to refer him, because I know what he's doing and how he's helping the community. So yeah, I mean, I don't see a ton of it. I do see some of the MSPs now diving a little bit deeper into it, and learning more about the different aspects of it. But there's so many different levels. There's so many certifications. You just have to know which one's right for you, what you can handle, and then what's involved once you get all your certifications. What's the process? I mean, is there so much red tape that even though you have your certification, you can't get past the red tape or don't know how to? That's what makes it dangerous, and scary. Plus, how many people like going through RFPs on a regular basis, let alone with, you know, government entities? That's
Not me.
thing.
Not me.
Yeah, not me either.
I'm seeing an explosion in companies that have just came out of left field talking about getting CMMC.
Yes.
I don't know if it's certified is the right word, approved,
It's
validated.
approved. Yeah, it's not a certification. It's an approved that you went through the process and you can run through that.
Like I'm seeing it like every other day. Like they're popping out like you know.
And that's a good thing. That's good for the community. Honestly, we've been talking about trying to find some standard. If CMMC were the standard, these guys have a step above. They have a leg up. You know, we've all gone through that with our good friend, you know, Matt Lee's talked about if there was a standard, CMMC could work. The problem is beyond that, like we talked about, where is legislature on this? Who's going to drive that? We've, you know, Pax8's trying to do some things behind the scenes to see if they can build up to that point. We all know that CompTIA is no longer in that game, so they're not going to be lobbying for these types of things anymore because they probably ran into, you know, some roadblocks and some issues and thought that their time would be better spent educating the community than trying to backdoor some legislation on that. But this is still a great first step that the community is buying into some kind of a system, something that has a good, better, best, right? Instead of, I just hung my shingle because I worked at IBM for 12 years. I'm an MSP now. So, and as Matt Lee says it, well, you know, being a bald guy, you know, my hairdresser has more certifications than I do, or more of a you know, a board certified, you know, this is what you have to do.
Sure. I mean, listen, I think the one thing about, you know, this CMMC, you know, which derived out of the federal government space, defense space, is that you actually have to, like, it's not a self thing. You actually have an outside entity come in and traditionally up until now, the only time that that's happened is if you've gone to like a SOC 2 types or, compliance, or like some outside auditor has to come in and actually make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing rather than just handing over a packet of paper and saying, yep, I'm good. So,
Right.
it'll be interesting to see if this starts to take a full steam, and how expensive is it going to be to actually do it? I mean, I've heard prices all over the map, man.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm sure it's going to get a little expensive. I'm not 100% sure on that. The pricing of all of that. We should probably have a whole show on that. We'll talk to the folks that are doing that just to see what it takes to dive in with both feet. I know that you have to start thinking about your pricing model when you go to that level. You have to start thinking about, the $200 per user and higher, and
Right.
slide.
This isn't just, I went to go to the Better Business Bureau. I paid my $250
No,
a year and I got a sticker, right?
no. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this should be built into, we provide this protection, these layers, right? This is our stack. This is what it does. And, bring that to the customers that value what you do, right? We always talk about that. It always comes back to, if you have a bunch of customers that don't value what you do, this is never going to fly. And you're going to waste your time going to the MMC and trying to introduce that to folks that just don't value what you do. And that's probably why a lot of folks don't do it, right? Don't even think about it, because they're, my customers will never pay for that. Well, it's either time to educate your customers or get new ones.
This is true. So Alan Miller actually comes back to the last topic, which is, hey, for local government, you can get a decent idea by like going and reading the RFPs. It's all publicly available on their website. 100%, Alan. Here's my only rub, I'm going to say rub, against that whole process. One, a lot of the times the people who have written RFPs have written them for a specific vendor. That is clearly happening a lot. You could, all of a sudden you meet every requirement, you found out you lost a deal. Why? It doesn't make sense. Like, and then the other thing is, in a lot of these government situations or public situations where it's supposed to be lowest vendor that meets the requirements win, and then all of a sudden you found out you were the lowest vendor, but then they handed it to somebody else who actually is more expensive because why? You got to know the game in order to play it. And that's the problem. Like, I know people who have tried responding to RFPs and they're 80, 90, 100 hours into creating all the documentation and all the exhibits and all the whatever. And then they, that time is lost and they weren't even really in consideration, even though technically they checked the boxes and were the lowest bidder. So that's my frustration, right? I'd love to understand who's actually succeeding doing that. Especially at the local level, right? Because like the local level, every state's different, right? I don't know if it's 20 or 25 or 30 or whatever the limit is and above where you actually have to bid. But there's a lot less red tape to go through at the local level, like your local police department, your local fire company, your local municipality, than it is a state contract or federal contract. But I want to understand who's actually succeeding there, because if there's money there to be made, I definitely don't want to waste my time submitting RFP, and then 100 RFPs in after 1,000 hours, I finally figured out that, what I need to do to get it to work. So I don't know. I mean, that's my feeling on it. I just want to know, for MSPs out there, the government's not going anywhere. If there's a place to actually use that as a revenue generator, I want to know how to do it right from the beginning so that I'm not wasting my time. That's my feeling.
Yeah. Well, and also, even if you land it, they review it every year in most cases, maybe you're sometimes even shorter. So do you really want to go through that whole process again each time? It's gonna be worth your while. And I definitely had experience at the last MSP. We did a fairly large RFP. We were on site multiple times. They felt the love. They said everything was great. Their people loved everything we did. I mean, we did everything right. And couldn't believe that the company that they went with, we were shocked at who they went with. And it all came down to some relationship, a previous relationship with a new CEO. And that's what it came down to, even though we had a better solution. I mean, the solutions were even different. Their solution was completely old school, nothing new. And they're talking about spending all this money. And it was actually a mix of what they, with their budget and everything. We had hit everything. And they decided to go with this other company, and it's relationship driven, right? You got to be careful of who's coming in and who they know, because it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
like you said.
I'll leave you on a story here, but early days of BVoIP, one of our early partners who's actually still with us, their first opportunity was they were bidding for a county, right? Like the county courthouse, the county jail, the county, like just any county property, right? Phone system. And the whole deal ended, like they ended up putting in, we helped them, right? We came in with them as a vendor. We helped them, put the RFP to get the response together, all this, whatever. We spent a ton of time with them. And then they put in a bid for like, it was like $600,000, it's like $640,000 if memory serves. And we hit every checkbox in the RFP. I like literally 100% answer back. And they ended up awarding it to a Cisco dealer for $300,000 more.
Yeah.
And the only answer he got back was, well, you never get fired for going with Cisco.
There you go.
And I'm like, wait a minute. You put on RFP. There's a process here. What happened? Very frustrating.
Yeah, and you never know what incentives and kickbacks were built into that 300,000 extra going back to said person who's signing off too. I've seen that as well, where yeah, it's more money, but they're getting a little kickback, so they forced it through.
That's not supposed to happen, by the way.
Neither is what you just said, so it doesn't matter. It's all happening, right? It's
Sure.
all some level happening. Hey, I don't know what you're talking about, but you like my new boat?
Right on. Right on. No, and Alan Miller actually came back and said, hey, no argument. I looked at some and said beyond my scope. I'm right there with you, man. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't learn.
Right. No, look at, like I said, go look at the process, look at people who are succeeding at doing it, and they'll tell you why, most of them. And like I said, Tim Choquette's one of those guys who from Covenant, and he's one of those guys who really believes in rising the tide for the whole community and wants to help everybody get into that space because they desperately need it too. There's only a few people who are actually certified to do what he does.
Yeah, well, and he's big into like police departments and
right. Yeah. Yeah. Police, prisons, federal prisons, and of course the full military.
Yeah, you could tell us a lot of stories about going into prisons and fixing computers.
Yep. That's a story for another day, George.
100%. So this upcoming week, I know we have somebody lined up for Thursday, and there are a lot of good topics coming up in the next couple of weeks. So everybody stay tuned. Make sure you follow us Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time. We record all of these. Obviously, they're online. Obviously, we get into, I guess past the surface level, I would say, on a lot of topics, right? Where, last week was interesting on PPP. Any good stuff coming up this upcoming week that's worth checking out, or we're just seeing how it goes?
Well, we got MSP Community Call on Thursday, and Bob Coppage is going to pop on. He's always on, but he's going to lead the conversation and start off with some commit stuff, what's good now and what's changing, and just a 10,000-foot view of commit. And maybe we'll dig in a little bit as the conversation goes. And as you know, that conversation usually turns into a multiple of other cool subjects. So anybody interested in checking out the MSP Community Call, just reach out to George or myself. We'll give you the link, and it's always on Facebook, so you can check it out. But yeah, I think
that's 3 o'clock Eastern time on Thursdays.
Yep, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Yep, it's.
And I'll tell you what, we're hearing a lot of wins happening right now in co-managed. A lot.
Yep.
100. Like I'm hearing MSPs have converted their entire sales prospecting to just that.
Yep. 100%. So definitely should join in. If you can't make it, watch the video, watch the recording on Facebook, but going to be a great call. We'd love to have everybody join and add your input too, because we love the input. It's what makes our community great.
100%. Appreciate you, Ken. Thanks everybody for watching. See you on Thursday.